My friend Ruben from the Ruby Tuesday told me about this quirky Irish comedy called Apocalypse Clown. It's hitting UK theaters and then is probably either going to be available on demand or in limited release elsewhere very soon. When a mysterious technological blackout plunges Ireland into anarchy and chaos, a group of failed clowns are forced to traverse the country for one last shot at their dreams. Now, I'm a huge fan of the movie Brian and Charles. In fact, it was my favorite movie from 2022. To my surprise, Apocalypse Clown stars David Earl, who played Brian, the human counterpart, in that other lovely film. Now here, just like I mentioned in the synopsis, a tech blackout happens, forcing part of the world that we witness into a semi-state of chaos. And it's not quite like the end of the world's end, but things are slowly beginning to unravel because there's no cell, internet, or TV service. We all know we can't go long without being connected to our own devices, right? Now, despite this being titled Apocalypse, it's not nearly as dark and dire as you might expect. There aren't any zombies or huge militias, or even roaming groups of cannibals. We don't really see a bunch of people at all, presumably just because they're all inside their homes to see what happens next. But the people we do see and we follow, they're bizarre and slightly off kilter. They're not necessarily dangerous, but you also probably wouldn't leave them to sit for your dog while you ran an errand. There's a great mix of clown characters. Bobo, played by Earl, is a pretty pathetic clown. He doesn't have many good ideas, isn't very demonstrative or joyful, and he looks like he's more of a movie hobo than a performing clown. Now, there are a few others that we meet that are varying levels of strange. One, named Pepe, looks like a French mime, but he talks. And he's terrible just like a mime. But he also has this slight innocence to him as he's trying to hone his craft. Then there's the great Alfonso. Now, he's pretty much the story antagonist, and I love the bravado that he presents. Ivan Cave plays the clown, and he's this tall and huge, imposing character. But he's also so full of hubris that he's almost instantly unlikable. But with that said, he has some humorous moments. Now, the final clown that's prominent within the story is a female street clown named Funzo. She's played by Natalie Palamides, and good gravy, this is one unhinged and disturbed individual. She's also hilarious because she's a total wild card. More than likely, what she wants to do will either be dangerous or morally sketchy, but she's hilarious in her delivery. And every time Funzo was on the screen, you never knew what absurdity would come out of her mouth. I was there for every moment of it. Now, to make the story more intriguing, or maybe touching, there's a reporter named Jenny, who's played by Amy de Bruin. Now, she has a small history with Bobo. Jenny isn't taken seriously as a journalist, but when this apocalypse happens, she seizes that opportunity to expose what really is going on. While this was extremely varied in its engagement, the interactions and dynamics that she has with the rest of the clown brigade, I thought they were pretty entertaining. Now, the whole premise of this story is that the clowns are trying to regain relevance in a world that seems to be lacking entertainment, and at the same time prove to the world and themselves that they can be funny, engaging, and entertaining. Now, there's a bit of a race to a finish line that helps to drive the story and maintain some momentum, but it doesn't always keep a steady or efficient pace. Now, a few of the times, the story takes some detours in the hopes of setting up jokes or maybe character arcs that are going to be used later for a comedic payoff, but they don't all land. Sometimes they even just come across as a huge waste of time of storytelling. Now, even though this is a comedy, it's not a laugh fest or even something that I chuckled at a ton. I mean, I was amused and I enjoyed the performances, and the dry humor, it really landed, keeping in line with the tone of most UK and Irish comedies. And I don't want you to think that I didn't laugh at all during this, because I really did. I just wouldn't classify this as a laugh riot or an insane comedy that brought tears to my eyes because of all the laughter. Now, the visuals, they look fine, but they're not anything spectacular. I mean, they don't feel like a big budget movie. That's totally fine. I mean, the indie nature of this, it works to bring about a quaint and comfortable feeling. Now, I knew right off the bat this wouldn't be a movie that everybody flocks to, or even something that would pop up on the radar as a must-see. But the camaraderie that's shared between the characters as they go on this trek, and then along with the overall charm of the actors, it makes for a very easy watching experience. I do think it's a bit long at an hour and 42 minutes. Now, if they had cut it down to closer to 90 minutes, I think the pacing could have worked better. And also then trimmed sequences that either fell flat or were too much of a tangent. And some of these scenes are small, like when the group encounters this hot dog vendor. I mean, there's a mildly humorous exchange between Jenny, Bobo, and the hot dog guy, but it ultimately isn't needed to move the narrative forward. There's also this ongoing chase gag that is ridiculous and silly, and it does provide some funny moments. But again, just like the hot dog vendor scene, this isn't something that's really needed to execute the story. Now, I'm glad the chases are present, but that doesn't mean that they're essential. This is fun for a casual movie, especially if you enjoy offbeat indie comedies. The cast works well together to create a dysfunctional traveling circus family, filled with oddities, romance, and even danger. While the premise is ridiculous and the execution is absurd, the overall tone of the film works to instill joy even though the screen is filled with freaky looking clowns. Dry humor abounds, and while it doesn't always nail the landing, the uniqueness of this idea deserves its time in the spotlight. There's no sex, but there are sexual innuendos, some brief nudity, a bunch of profanity, and a little bit of violence. I give Apocalypse Clown 3 out of 5 couches. So, do clowns frighten you? What is the scariest or maybe most messed up clown movie that you've ever seen? I watched Clown a little while ago, and some of that, it was wildly disturbing. But let me know yours in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.